The script is not yet written. We do not know what the page will read tomorrow. But for the first time in a long, long time, what we do know is that the pages will be authored by each and every one of you and you.
That was Donald Trump at a big rally last night. Once again, thanking people. He's on his thank you tour. Raymond Arroyo sitting in for Laura Ingraham, and joining us on the phone is, since Trump was talking about authors and authoring, if there was anyone who authored the candidacy of Donald Trump, it's probably our next guest. Patrick J. Buchanan joins us on the line, the man who I think first really brought to national attention this coalition that both the right and the left missed or neglected. Pat Buchanan, thank you for joining us.
Delighted, Raymond. You're going to hold me accountable.
Yeah, you bet. Now, look, when you heard that, Pat, when you listened to Trump, and I'm going to play another little bite for you, I want to get your approach, your reaction to this enduring approach of Trump, and how long do you think this can work? Listen to this.
There's something different about a crowd before the election, like when I was here a few weeks ago, and after the election. Before the election, they are brutal. They are so crazed. You're like crazed people, and that's good. I like that. And now you're laid back. Hey, baby. Yeah.
Pat, what do you make of that? I mean, it's almost a stand-up routine.
It really is, and I really get the sense of the crowd, for example, that there's a real sense of satisfaction, relief, because I think a lot of people thought that, given the effort Trump had made, that he was probably going to fall short in all their hopes for what he had to offer were not going to be realized. And I think there's a real sense of gratitude and anticipation and faith and hope in what is going forward. Now, politics usually fails to deliver that, Raymond, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I think these people that I see, they're really in a good spirit, and they're extremely hopeful, frankly, and they were to a degree. I remember being on the Mall when Obama was inaugurated, broadcasting from there, and the black folks that came in were just full of anticipation and hope for what was coming. So I think this is basically a good thing in and of itself, and can you imagine what it would be like if we were cutting on that TV and listening to Hillary visiting some place and saying thanks for putting me in the White House?
Well, and what do you make of the pick so far, Pat? Is this consistent with what he ran on? You got a lot of Wall Street folks, you've got a lot of billionaires, you have a couple of generals thrown in. Does that satisfy you?
I mean, the generals in Goldman Sachs.
Right.
But here, look, to a degree, I would prefer to see and maybe some other folks, but look, there's a tremendous number of names there. Many of them are really heartening and interesting. Others are perfectly acceptable. Some come from the Republican establishment. Yep. And, of course, there are some from Goldman Sachs. But I do think in the last analysis, more than any other presidency, unlike, say, Ike, who was something of a passive president, I think what's going to happen here is going to depend very, very heavily on Trump. For example, take the issue that's always bothered me is can we avoid another one of these Middle East wars, which Trump said he would, in coming months and coming years? And I think that's going to be very much up to him, because he's got folks in his entourage who would like to do battle with Iran or confront them, and other folks who would like to get on with the Russians, some who would like to face down the Chinese. But ultimately, it's going to come out to Donald Trump.
Yeah, I want to play something for you. I know I heard you say you would prefer other folks. Let's talk for a moment about this Rex Tillerson appointment, the former CEO of Exxon, appointed Secretary of State. Pat, there have been a number of people in the past few days who've come out in support of this nominee. Condoleezza Rice first suggested him, and James Baker, James Baker, your old pal,
right.
He came out the other day and also supported Tillerson. Listen.
John McCain has described Vladimir Putin as a butcher and has real concerns that Mr. Tillerson is too close to Vladimir Putin. What's your take on that?
It's one thing to be CEO of a major corporation you have a different responsibility as a government official, and particularly as Secretary of State. So, but I just don't see this as a disqualifier.
Okay, so you've got James Baker supporting him, Condoleezza Rice, Robert Gates. These are some of the same people, Pat, who took us to Iraq. Why are you supporting this nominee?
Well, I mean, if he makes John McCain unhappy,
that's enough for Buchanan.
You miss the bottom line. Right.
Yeah, exactly. See,
but,
I'm missing the forest through the trees. Go ahead.
Well, you know, look, I do still look. Clearly, the guy is very competent. He's traveled the world. He's worked with Exxon. But there are aspects, clearly, of the corporate world, most transnational corporations, in my experience, and really, they have no soul, quite frankly. They have all the conscience of a Maycow shark. But I think the guy is, in terms of doing deals, the guy is going to be very pragmatic, and he does not look to me like an ideologue, quite frankly, like say McCain and some of the folks that really want to face down Russia right now, and get into it with Putin over the Ukraine or over something going on in Syria. Mm-hmm. So in that sense, he seems quite pragmatic, and I think he's going to buttress Trump's desire, which is, look, not to cave into the Russians or all their demands, etc., but quite frankly, get on a straightforward, hard, respectful relationship between the two great nuclear superpowers so that we avoid a war and avoid some kind of confrontation over some foolish, difference such as those that have gotten nations to war in the past.
Are you worried that Tillerson is so close to Russia? Now, some have made the suggestion that he's, friendly with Putin, which doesn't seem to be the case.
What is he going to do? Let's suppose he gets along well with Putin. What's Putin going to ask him to do that he can accede to,
right,
if it's an outrageous demand, without getting a clamor from almost all Americans that he be thrown out as an appeaser? Mm-hmm. Look, if he wants to get along with the Soviets, the Russians, a little slip there. Uh-huh. And he says, look, maybe we ought to, get the military forces out of the eastern Baltic on both sides. The Russians move back. Maybe we ought to work something out on the sanctions on Russia. My own view is that the Crimean situation is not going to be turned around. The Russians held it for 200 years since Catherine the Great, till Khrushchev one night got drunk and gave it to the Ukrainian Soviet Republic, and then it wound up in their custody when they broke free. So these things are not causes of war for me. Mm-hmm. And so I think that I would like to see us work with these countries. And basically, the fundamental bottom line is avoid war, because, in my view, in the long term, Raymond, the United States is going to endure far better than the Chinese People's Republic is, which has huge problems internally, than Russia is. Russia's losing population, and it's going to face a real challenge from the Chinese down the road. The thing to do is maintain a strong, secure policy, basically, of avoiding war and betting that in the long run we're going to survive and prevail. And that stood us in good stead in the Cold War.
Pat, we have a lot of callers on the line because we were talking about this earlier in the hour. This Russian hack, you had Elijah Cummings saying this is really a threat to our democracy. Others are saying this hack of the DNC is, really, it caused Hillary Clinton to lose the election. Do you buy that analysis?
No. I'm sorry, and I shouldn't be disrespectful, but Vlad Pak is apparently one of the most effective political instruments in a long while. No, I don't buy that, and I just think that the Russian look. And also I'm not as exercised as everybody else is. Good heavens, the National Endowment for Democracy and the CIA are in the business. Back in the Cold War, my friend Tom Braden I worked with was carrying satchels of cash to France and to Italy to help the small d Democrats defeat the communists after the Cold War. Mm-hmm. We've dumped over governments. We've been involved. National Endowment has conducted all these color revolutions. You had McCain standing up on a flatbed truck calling for the overthrow of the Ukrainian regime. We are really standing on a high horse here. Mm-hmm. But I do think that the United States should investigate whether or not it took place, and I do think we don't want it taking place, and I do think that you're going to have some kind of rebuttal or some kind of challenge and some kind of response, If it did, but am I as exercised at this? Someone compared it to 9/11?
Right.
No.
Okay. I want to play this for you. This is Donald Trump talking about Syria. You wrote an incredible piece this week called Lessons of Aleppo for Trump. This is Trump's take on Syria.
When I look at what's going on in Syria, it's so sad. It's so sad. And we've got to help people. And we have the Gulf states. They have nothing but money. We don't have money. We owe $20 trillion. I will get the Gulf states to give us lots of money, and we'll build and help build safe zones in Syria so people can have a chance. So they can have a chance.
Pat Buchanan, did Donald Trump heed your lessons? Is that the right lesson to take away?
Well, I think I believe that is rhetoric. I think all of us would agree that if you could find some wet place where these refugees, the civilians, can go and not be under aerial attack from the Syrians or the Russians or anyone, that's a good thing. The problem is when you use these safe zones, what do you mean? Do you mean the United States, if these people are going to move into these particular zones, you will find the Al-Qaeda types will move in underneath that air umbrella also, and you'll find other radicals, and then when the Syrians or Russians strike those terrorists, we're going to shoot down Russian planes? No, we're not going to shoot down Russian planes, nor should we, because first, the Congress of the United States has not authorized any war against Syria. I mean, Syria has not attacked us, and the American people don't want to get involved. So I think the sentiments expressed by Trump are the right ones. But when you're talking about safe zones and things like that, I would ask him, he's going to have to explain, what do you mean by that? Are we going to shoot down aircraft inside Syria if they're flown by Syrian pilots inside their own country, or are we going to shoot down Russian planes? And I don't think we are. And I don't think Trump means that. And I think what he means is find some sanctuary, hopefully, or probably, if you did it in Jordan, or you did it in the Golan Heights, or you did it in Turkey.
Get a regional power to sponsor it and let them take care of it and keep the people near their homeland.
The refugees. I do agree that you ought to get the Gulf states, who are partly responsible for this stupid war, funding the anti-Assad rebels, that they ought to be held accountable for the results of what they produced as well as us.
Pat, just to change topics in our last moments here, there are a lot of celebrities who are urging, begging the electors in the Electoral College, which is about to meet, to abandon Trump, even those who should vote for him. Do you think there's any possibility that they will be swayed or that somehow the election could be in jeopardy? They meet on December 19th.
I doubt it very seriously. And I think if they're going to meet, and maybe you'll get one or two or something like that were Trump basically electoral votes who don't vote for him or something like that, or quote, faithless electors. But 36 or 37, which is what they need, no. And if they did...
Well, it would revert to it would go to the Congress, wouldn't it?
Well, if they did, it would go into the House of Representatives, I think. But my guess is the states might be able to act themselves and really disqualify those electors and redo it.
Yeah,
so,
that's my sense.
I just don't believe it. But if they did, we'd be headed for Bull Run a second time.
with Buchanan leading his brigades. Shelley is sharpening the pitchfork right now.
That would be the dumbest thing the left could do.
Okay. Well, Pat Buchanan, we will leave it right there. Pat's got a great piece up on Town Hall and at patbuchanan.com. Pat, always great to talk to you. Merry Christmas if I don't talk to you before the big day.
You take it easy, Raymond, and Merry Christmas to you all.
Thank you. Talk to you soon.